Hello and welcome to this session. So in this session, we'll talk about concept called as foreign key. So to understand this, let's take a simple example. Let's say we want to store some employee data. So now you can store this employee data in a single table. So let's first see how we can store this data in the single employee table, right? So if you want to store the data, right? So you need to create a structure. Basically the columns, the data types. So for example, for the employee table, what are the fields that you want to store? So you might want to store employee ID, which is basically an ID given to an employee, right? And this is basically a number, correct? Then you want to store again, the number could be anything like, let's say, 3 digits, right? So then you want to store employee name. This will be varchar2. So let's say 20, right? Then you may also want to store, let's say, salary, right? Again, number, right? So I'm just randomly putting some columns here. Let's say you also want to store department number, right? So department number basically tells you like this employee belongs to which department. Is it this guy belongs to the sales department? Does it this person belongs to the HR department? So they also have a number like department number and the department name, right? So now again, let's say so this is a small list of data that you want to store, right? So previously, we have looked at the Amazon tables, right? So there's lot of data getting stored. This is a small table, but still, if you look at this table, you have similar kind of issues here also, where you have found in the in the Amazon table, basically duplicate of data, right? So, for example, the same employee or the same department number gets added multiple times, right? So instead, what we can do here is we can actually separate the employee and department. Okay. So what we'll do is like instead of putting this data here, we can put this data here and we call it as department table. Okay. Now, here's the thing, right? So, how do you kind of join these two tables, okay? Or how do you relate these two tables, right? Because you need to have some sort of relationship between these two data so that you can kind of say that, hey, for this employee ID, this person belongs or this person belongs in this department location or department name, right? This person belongs to this IT department or this person belongs to this. Right now, we are in employee table, there is no such data. So what we usually do is we basically also close this one, right? So we basically add the department number as well. So now what happens is, let me also put department location as well. So we have the department location here. So what happens is, for example, if I want to know about this employee and this employee has a department number, right? So this department number, what I will do is I'll go and check here. Okay, for example, let's say this employee ID, let's say this employee ID is 1, name is John. We have a salary, something like this. Department number is 10. Now, what I will know, what I will have here employee table is I'll just have this data like employee ID, the name and the department number. But what is the department number? I want to know the department name, right? Where this person is working. Is it in IT? Is it in sales or is it in HR, right? So what I'll do is I will basically go and check what is department number 10 here. Okay, so this department number, department table will have data like this: department number, department name, sales, location, New York, something like this, right? So let's say I'll just set two data here, maybe IT, let's say New York. So now what happens is I have this data and I want to know what is the data here. So what I'll do is I'll go and check this data. Okay. Department number 10. Okay. What is the department number 10? Oh, this is sales department. So then I will copy it here and say, look, oh, this person belongs to the sales department. So basically you are basically linking the data from one table to another. All right. So now imagine that you have added a department number, let's say 30 here. Now, if you look at this 30, right, 30 is not available here, correct? So if you go and check in this department table, like you will not have that value there, correct? So typically, like you should not assign, you should not have an employee who does not work in any department, right? That's an orphan record, correct? So you always need to have somebody who is like working categorized into a department, whatever the department may be, right? So in order to ensure that there is that integrity between the tables, there is that integrity between these tables, so we make use of something called as a foreign key. Okay, a foreign key is basically a relationship between those two tables, right? And basically it tells you that whatever the data that is defined in one table has to be referenced. That means if you in this table, for example, if you want to refer any data, or if you want to refer the department number any data, that data must be present in the department in the other table. So that is the concept of foreign key. Okay, so now what there are two things that we will create. First is basically we would create a primary key here. So if we are looking at this column, right, in this field, this is a reference data for the employee, right? So we need to create this as a primary key. Okay? And in the employee, we need to refer this primary key here. So we would say we will refer this primary key, right? We would need to this refer this primary key. Okay, this is basically referencing this primary key. This is called as a foreign key. Now this will be called as a foreign key because we are referencing a foreign table, the primary key of a foreign table, right? So that is the basic concept of the foreign key. All right. Okay. So now let's go to our we'll start working on this code. So let's start creating the table. So the first table that we will create is let's say create table. We'll create a department table. Okay. So department number, I would say number. So let's take it as 5. Department name, Parcat 2. Let's call it 20. Let's also see department location. Okay, now, comma, then I have to create a constraint here. So I was talking about the constraint, the primary key. So you need to create a primary key. So I will call PK. So this is naming convention is very important. So PK basically refers to primary key. What you prefix is very important. Underscore department number. So the basically tells you the primary key, which is department number. So primary key of department number. So that is the primary key that we want, right? So now let me go ahead and execute this. So the table is created. Let me go ahead and quickly insert into this table. I'm going to say department, department number, department name, department location, values. Let's give a 10. So 10 would be, let's call it sales. Your So let me copy this, let me execute this. Let me also add another value. So let me call this as 20. I will call it as IT department. Location is same, right? Let's add another data. So let's call this as HR, right? So now, good. Let me execute this as well. So I have 3 records. Let me quickly check this record. So let me do a select star from department because I want to see all the data, all the columns, right? So select this, execute this. You can see we have the data like department number, department name, department location. Now, primary key is on the department number. Now let's create our employee table. So I'm going to create employee table. So let's say employee ID. This will be number, let's say number 5. What else? Employee name. Okay. Then we'll say salary. Salary will be number of 5. Then we will add something called as department number. Okay, so department number. Let's say what did we give here? Department number? Yeah, 5, right? So yeah, just to keep in case. So let's just say that you are actually creating this, right? Now we need to add a constraint here, right? So we need to add a foreign key constant, right? So before that, let's also add a primary key constant to this because employee ID should also be unique, right? So let's also do that. So employee ID, primary key of employee ID. So this is a This is the constraint, right, on the primary key. Now let's add a foreign key. So I'll say FK foreign key on department number. Now you will have to say foreign key. What is that foreign key? Department number. Okay, this is the foreign key. Now this is basically the foreign key because it refers the other table. So you'll say references table. This is the table that it references. What column it references? Department number. So you need to copy this department number here. Okay, now in some we have department number and department number same here, right? So it's, let's say in some cases, this might be department number one, right? So instead, now you need to basically copy this as department number one. So it refers this department and the column in that department. Okay, so let me just remove this. Ensure that you don't get confused here. So you say constant name, foreign key of department number here, and it refers the department table. And which column? This is the column. All right, so now let me go ahead and execute this. Okay, the table is created. Now let's go ahead and insert the data into the table. So this is employee, right? It's employee. Let's copy this employee name, salary, and department values. So let's say employee ID is 1, name is Smith, right? Salary is 2300, department number is 10. Okay, so this is fine. I'm going to execute this, right? Okay, so I have an error here. So let's see, salary is invalid, right? Okay, so there is a spelling mistake here. You can see that SALRY, but it should have been salary. So that is fine. Debugging, right? As I mentioned, you will encounter these kind of issues when you start working on. So that should not be an issue. Okay, we have one row inserted. If I try to insert the same row again, I will have an error because unique constraint is violated, right? So it tells you which got violated. So let me just copy this and insert another value here instead of the same value. So I'm going to call it as employee ID 2. John, I'll keep the salary same. Department number is also same. All right, so let's execute it. Okay, so let me just select the data first. Okay, now some people will get confused with this data here, like employee department number is like 10. It is kind of a duplicate because we have mentioned here as uh, primary key, right? So this is basically, this primary key is only for this table, right? Department table, right? For employee table, the primary key is this one, correct? So here you can see 1 and 2, these are unique. So what is the relation between these two is a foreign key, which basically says whatever the value that is present in the in this department table, only those values we can use. So for example, if I execute something like this, see, let me, before that, let me also show you what is there in the department number, right? Department. So I have 10, 20, 30 department number, right? So if I go and let me change this, if I say, let's say, I try to add a department number 40. Now 40 is not here, right? So if I add a 40, it will throw me an error. See, integrity constant fk violated, parent key not found, right? So what it is saying, like, you're trying to insert a value 40 which I don't see in the parent table. What is that parent table? Department number. So you don't see this here in the department table. So that is why it is throwing you an error. So this is the concept of foreign key. If you want to ensure the integrity, right, because you don't want to insert a data which is not available in your company, right? So let's say if you're building a student data, correct? And if you're trying to insert a subject which the student is not learning, right, or the universe is not teaching, doesn't make any sense because that subject is not there for that student, right? So you need to maintain that integrity, and foreign key helps us maintain that integrity, right? So this is all I have on the foreign key. I hope this was clear, and I'll see you guys in my next class.